I noticed for me, again, it goes back to the identity conversation, is when I became a millionaire, it was like that's what I wanted. And I started to play not to lose as opposed to play to win. So I hit the brake. And it was like, how do I not lose what I've built, as opposed to, hey, what else is possible?
Welcome to the Fuel Hunt Show.
What's going on, Eagles? I'm Joey. Welcome to the Fuel Hunt Show. Today, Drew and I are joined by a friend of ours, the world's #1 fitness business coach, Vince Del Monte. Vince, it's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, fellas. Fantastic. Yep, great to have you. Great to see you guys. Great to be here.
Yeah, excellent.
Vince, the last time we threw down like this, we were just young. You were one of the first times we showed our faces on the internet, the faces behind the brand.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's full circle that we're coming back and we're actually interviewing you. So
it's funny. Yeah. No, it's really neat. I loved your guys' story right from day one when I heard all about your humble beginnings and your persistence and embodying everything you guys preach. I think everybody's been cheering for you guys, so I'm really happy to hear about all your success.
I appreciate that, but it's funny. I not to hijack the show off the bat, but we just got off a fresh day of podcasting yesterday, and the thing we talk a lot about with entrepreneurs is just the grind never stops. You know what I mean? Like, we're still working just as hard as we were when we talked to you last. So
if you choose to,
yeah.
I just hired a mentor that he turned acquisition off for 8 months, and I said, dude, I don't know if I'm hiring the right guy. He's like, he said, you don't have to do what I did, but there are ways to slow down, but they require a massive perspective and courage. And I'm like, that's a little extreme for me, but I'll maybe one day.
Yeah. I also have, your show, Vince, was one of the first shows we were on, first time we showed our faces.
That's right.
I also have you to thank for really my first time on stage, because at your Nashville event, you were gracious enough to bring me up as a sponsor and let me share a little bit of the Fuel Hunt story, and that kind of kicked things off for me. So I'm very grateful to you for that as well. So the show and the stage both.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for all the times I text you guys to, hey, I got a couple weeks before an event. Can you whip up some shirts for me? And you guys are texting like 3 seconds back. Yeah, send over what you're thinking.
Yeah, you keep us on our toes, man.
Yeah, 6 hours later, hey, they're being shipped. Need the address.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we love it, man. We love a good grind.
Yeah, I feel like a VIP client. I'm like, how do they do that?
That you are. We make magic happen. That's what I say all the time.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. So, Vince, the Fuel Hunt community, it's diverse, right? We got moms, dads, we got doctors, nurses, lawyers, teachers, morticians, florists, artists. I could go on. But if I had to pick probably the most common profession in the few, it would be personal trainer, hands down. So we have a lot of community members that are either personal trainers or flirting with the idea of becoming a personal trainer, right? So I'm excited for you to share your story of, how you started out as, Skinny Vinny trying to solve your problem of muscle mass, then turning that into helping others solve their problem of muscle mass, then turning that into helping personal trainers scale, right, their businesses, and then really coming to a head at where you are now in life with redesigning yourself. So your story is rich. We respect you and your business acumen, not just your fitness acumen, but your business acumen. I'm excited for the community to hear your story. So if you could, I know it's a long one, so you can keep it brief where you'd like, but if you could take us back to the Skinny Vinny days, like how did it all start?
Yeah. I was raised in a Christian home. My father was a really good runner. He went on full scholarship to the States. He got my brothers and I into running. And it's funny because I'm training my kids now for cross-country running, and I had to ask him because I took them to say they're weak, but they were doing some pushback and like, Dad, like, how come we have to do 400s again? I'm like, I had to ask my dad, did I push back? It's a tough sport. It's a tough sport. And it's probably the greatest thing that my dad did for my kids and I, next to our faith. He got us into competitive long distance running, probably the loneliest and most painful sport. And
I built an identity in being a pretty good runner.
Mhm.
A lot of my story has to do with identity and just trying to figure out who the heck am I? Because I grew up in I wouldn't say my father's shadow, but and my mom's as well. You know, they um, had a platform. They worked for a Christian organization. I watched them impact people's lives on a very close, like one-to-one level. They were what you call disciples. So they'd come alongside you. They kind of be like the putter in golf. They put you in the hole. They weren't like so much the driver that gets you down the fairway, or the what's the next one, the iron that gets you closer. They were the putter. They would do the hard work with people, and I saw the impact they had in their life, in other people's lives. So I always felt this pressure to make a name for myself, and running was something that I started to make a name for myself with. And I had that nickname Skinny Vinny. I was a weak, scrawny pipsqueak, couldn't get the girl. Um, and I loved running, but again, it was just painful. Like, running came with a lot of disappointment and loss, which turned out to be two major themes in my life: disappointment and loss. And in university, I ended up hanging out with all these buff dudes. They would have been like the guys who are on the explore page of Instagram nowadays, like tatted and shredded abs all year long. Those were my roommates. And I go to clubs with them, and I wanted what they got, which was the respect from dudes and the admiration from girls. And running wasn't giving me that. But they were all jacked, and they're all natural guys too, so they were all jacked up. And I had this fascination with muscle. I got to experience it at an early age. And I was like your typical guy. I was curious to know, like, what could I do if I stopped running and put all this effort, these 60 to 100 miles a week I was doing with running, into the gym. And after just too much loss and disappointment from running, I was a good runner, but I wasn't a great runner. I was kind of your mid-packer. And at the end of university, I had to make a decision. And one of my decisions was to get into personal training, which I kind of dabbled with in my fourth year. And interestingly enough, I loved it. Working on the gym floor, working with people with workout programs. And I love the nutrition side of things. But I didn't look like a personal trainer. I was still Skinny Vinny, but I was fascinated by this world of program design. I was learning from guys like Charles Poliquin and Ian King and John Berardi. He was actually one of my university professors before he was John Berardi, and this was third-year university. And I fell in love with this world. And after university, that was when I made kind of like my first decision to kind of not stand up to my parents or my dad, but to make a decision for myself. And that decision was to quit running. It was one of the scariest things to quit running, because it was a thing that gave me all my identity, and to pursue this world of personal training at the Guelph YMCA for $10 an hour, which is where my dad worked out. And he was like, are you going to be a personal trainer when you're 35? This is when I was 22. So that kind of lays the groundwork. And I really fell in love with the world of personal training. And, a few months into that job, I asked for a raise from my boss, and she said, let me talk to my boss. And she came back the next day and said, we can give you a $1 per hour raise in 1 year from now. And I quit on the spot. I said, that's not going to do it. One of my dad's friends had given me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was starting to learn about the concept of recurring revenue and leveraging your time. And I went to this gym in town where the boss was really good at sales, and he started to show me the ropes around selling gym memberships, and that eventually led to me selling personal training packages and introducing me to this whole world of selling 72 sessions, 144 sessions, and selling these $3,000, $6,000 packages and making 15, 20%. And I fell in love with the world of sales. And I started, again, back to identity. I started to make a name for myself as this good salesman. And, but I was making my boss rich. I wasn't making myself rich. And I was getting more and more interested in the idea of, what was possible if I had my own online thing. And this is back in between 2002 to 2005. I was making a name in the gym. But this is when, like, Google, Article marketing was just starting to ramp up on sites like bodybuilding.com, T Nation. And I started seeing these guys on the internet who were making money selling ebooks. Another good word for an ebook is air. Like you're literally just selling, information. There was no coaching attached to it. And I found out this one guy, Anthony Ellis, a fast mass gain, was selling this program for $97 one time. It was a 12-week muscle building program, and he had before and after photos that pretty much looked like mine. Oh, I forgot about the part where I transformed my body. Come back to that. And I thought, I have a transformation like this. Wonder if this is possible. I found out he was making $1,000 a day. And I said, that's impossible. There's no way anybody could be making, I can't even do the math on that, $30,000 a month. How's that even possible? Sure enough, it was possible, and he was selling 10 copies a day, and I found out who he learned from, and I hired that mentor, and that mentor taught me how to market my Skinny Vinny to fitness model story, where I in the process of getting into the gym, I did transform my own body naturally, and that was really the foundation of my online fitness business about 18 years ago. And then I went on to build 4 different 7-figure fitness businesses serving skinny guys who wanted to have their first drug-free transformation.
Were you a people person naturally, because you're in the sales world and you're on the floor, and it seemed like you went from, selling your own services to selling the services of others as well. So
yeah, 100%. I was not
skill
a
something you had to
natural
develop?
people person at all. I was like keeping to myself. So sales, I created a lot of awkward situations, like face to face, very up close, trying to close people that were like unclosable. To the point of like, it's almost like I was that stubborn billy goat on the side of the mountain during a storm. Like I would just like you're gonna get blown off, but somehow I thought I wouldn't. And I was very stubborn. Actually in Italian, I have a nickname. I'm very stubborn, testa dura. I have a hard head. So it served me and it didn't serve me, because I would kind of plow through unknowingly. Yeah. And for people that would, have a hard time saying no, I guess it worked in sales circumstances, but it certainly wasn't elegant or, but it did get the job done. So I had to learn how to connect, how to listen, how to, follow up. I was not polished.
One thing I wanted to touch on too, and being an entrepreneur and a good entrepreneur is a hard skill to acquire and or master. But one thing I think rings true to all entrepreneurs is that we have to figure it out, right? Like there's not an answer to every problem, and that you can look up in a book and learn the solution to the problem you're looking for. So one thing you mentioned you did was you found that guy's, Anthony Ellis, I believe you said, you found his mentor. So at a time where the internet wasn't as easy to access or navigate as it is now, how did you go about finding that mentor? And
I emailed a guy that I
him
saw
down and getting him to mentor
who
you.
was selling products. I actually bought this $40 supplement guide from this guy, and he actually shipped it to me in the mail, which was mind blowing, because it was a supplement secrets thing with all these recipes to make your own homemade supplements from this bodybuilder. His name was Lee Hayward. He was like one of the OGs, and I sent him $40, and he sent me this thing in the mail, and I'm like, holy jeez, like it was mind boggling. And I asked him, where did you learn how to do this? That's how I ended up finding this guy, Anthony Ellis. He said, go to this internet marketing site, and the guy was running it way back in the day named Corey Rudel. Sadly, he passed away in his late 20s because I guess he raced cars and had a fatal accident. But he was way, way, way ahead of his time. He came up with like all the legends, our internet marketing legends, and he sent me this massive textbook of all this content and these DVDs, and I was like, it was like love at first sight. I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. This is so freaking cool. Selling stuff on the internet and making money and having this lifestyle first business. That's what it started out as. Unfortunately, you know how it is when you try to start to scale, you enter a whole different world.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How did your father react? Now you're quit running, you went into personal training, Now you're
Oh
selling
yeah.
personal training for people on your team. Now you're going into internet marketing. So like, and it sounds like took some time, but it wasn't, you're not talking about a 10-year transition here. Like you're really making moves.
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean? It's not
his first question when I went online was like, "Have you made any money yet?" And then I said, "Yeah, Dad, I got a couple sales." And he goes, "Oh, good. How much?" I'm like, "That's all right." And then I said, "How are you getting paid?" I'm like, "They send me a check in the mail." I'm like, "Oh, let me know when you get it."
yeah.
And I'm like, when I got the check, I said, "Hey, the check arrived." And a few weeks later, I said, "Hey, did it bounce?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was just like skepticism. It's like kids, old school Italian, like they didn't. This is completely new.
It's
Um,
funny. That's how it is when, and we talk about this a lot, but when you're an entrepreneur, when you're chasing a bigger dream than other people can, like you said, like small town minds could even wrap their head around when you're chasing that lifestyle first business or something that's
Yeah.
different or seems out of reach for a lot of people. They're skeptical and they
Right.
doubt and they say, "Oh, how's that little internet thing doing?" Like how for us it was, "How's that little
Right.
t-shirt
You're like,
shop
you got like
going
your
for
little
you?"
lemonade
Like that.
stand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It happened to me like a year ago at jiu-jitsu. This God bless the guy. He was an older guy, but he's like, "Oh, how's your little t-shirt shop?" And I'm like, we're we're a little bit bigger than that at
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
point. But I just laughed because you just don't understand, especially if you're out of touch
I didn't
or
tell my
not.
family for 15 years, like exactly. Even when I go through the border, so some days I go through the border and I just say, they go, "What do you do?" I just say, like, they don't even understand it. Business coach or personal trainer. I'm like, I'm a personal trainer. Even explaining personal trainer, like personal trainer, like, are you from another
yeah.
planet? Like, you're working as a freaking customs
Yeah,
officer. You ever heard of anybody come across the borders? So I normally even tell my family, like, I'm just a personal trainer.
Yeah.
yeah.
We had
That's
that.
like,
We had that conversation on the show yesterday. We'll just say entrepreneur, business owner,
yeah.
or something
You got
like
to know you got to read the room. You got to know
that.
who's at. Like, it's the airplane test. Like if you feel like explaining on an airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the internet marketing world was really just emerging. And then, so that's difficult to understand for old school minds. Plus, the old school minds that you were explaining to are old school Italians. So I have firsthand experience with that as well. I get it. I get
Yeah.
it.
I
They were at
dated.
that time. I believe they were even skeptical of the internet, let alone your internet business.
Yeah, it's funny because I started dating some Italian girls, and this one girl I dated in my 20s, like her parents were so fearful they never put her in swimming lessons because they thought she
Yeah.
was going to drown. Like I'm like that kind of fear. So
Yes.
like when I told her I'm an entrepreneur, like she came with all this stuff like, "Oh, you're not a real man unless you put in 12 hours a day underneath the hood and you come home with greasy hands." And I'm like, "Well, don't worry, I can work 12 hours a day," but like the idea of me working at a Starbucks or behind a laptop was like, she's like, "How do I introduce you to my dad?"
Yeah.
Like, does he want to, does he want to know how much I make, or does he want to know like? And she's like, "He won't understand, he won't believe it." I'm like, "Okay." So we broke up shortly after. I was too much.
Yeah.
He said, "You're too much. You've set too many goals for me."
Funny story. Funny you mentioned Starbucks because I saw a clip the other day of Howard Schultz on a podcast, and he said there was a similar conversation with his wife, and he went. His father-in-law said, like, "Let's go on a walk," and he said, "You gotta quit. My wife's working in your little coffee shop, and she's 9 months pregnant. You're gonna have a kid. You're not getting paid, like, et cetera, et cetera." And luckily, his wife was like, "No, we're not quitting. We've come too far." But if he listened to his father-in-law at that time, he would have shut
Yeah.
down potentially the biggest coffee.
I think I think that's a big trait. My brother said about me at my wedding, and it's funny because he articulated something about myself I didn't even know about myself. So this is not like me tooting my own horn. I was like, it's interesting to other people observe some of your own character traits that you don't know. But
Mhm.
um, he said one thing Vince has always done is he's made us believe,
Mhm.
and that was when I realized what business I was in. I was in the belief building business. I was in the business of helping people believe they could do the impossible.
Mhm.
And I realized like a lot of my things was starting a career in personal training, making a living out of personal training, then starting my own online business, then moving out on my own, quitting running. Those are all decisions I made. And if there's anybody in my life I'd respect and listen to more, it would be my parents. So this is no knock on them, because if there was anybody who could influence me and guide me, like I had such a great relationship with my parents. I knew like my parents are smart. They figured out some stuff 100%, but I don't know if they cracked the money code.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I was interested in. So,
Sure.
I respectfully, carved my own path. And my nonno, my mom's dad, came over from Italy when he was 26 on a boat, and learned English when he got here, and he built a name for himself by building a lot of construction in Niagara Falls. He built Club Italia. He built a mausoleum, which is upground cemetery, and he essentially became the godfather, like a real life godfather in my family. And I always thought it was amazing because a lot of my mom and her sisters kind of lived off, benefited from those decisions. And I love the idea of being that 1% in the family who was essentially the provider. It came with a lot of pressure that I wasn't aware of, but I liked being the guy that everybody could count on. And I've to this date, employed probably tons of my family and my wife's ex-wife's family in the process because of the decisions that I have made. I've created jobs and opportunities for a lot of people in my family, and that inspiration came from my nonno. And it's pretty neat to see that I never thought that I would kind of become that, but that was kind of something that inspired me.
Yeah.
To again, back to identity. It was this, I wanted that was an identity I took a lot of pride in.
Yeah, for sure. I think most entrepreneurs, whether they're aware of it or not, or whether they have the words for it or not, they feel that same draw towards that identity. I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to, being a protector, being a provider, being a creator, being the one in your circle, whether it's your friends or your family, that does things differently and at the same time provides opportunity, for them. So yeah, I'm there with you. Drew, you had a question?
No.
Very good. Very good. So you find internet marketing, you are amazed at the fact that, there's people selling products, you're receiving checks. Your first products, I'm assuming, were ebooks, right? For skinny guys, and you were the testimonial, the transformation.
I was the face of the brand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
How did you go about marketing that first ebook?
All right. Started article marketing.
Okay.
So e-zine articles, bodybuilding.com. Basically what you do is you'd get published and you'd have a link to your website. And it wasn't like a nice fancy website. It was a long form sales page.
Yeah.
So it was, your old school 96-page infomercial, long sales, 96 pages literally, to a link to a checkout page to get your deliverables. And I did that for years. Yeah. And then it was affiliate marketing. Then you would get people to promote your product with email, and you'd pay them 50%, eventually 75% commission. Yeah. And then I was one of the OGs on YouTube. So 2008, I started my YouTube channel. I started it back in the day with like the Athlete X, Jeff Cavalier, and who else back then? Elliot Hulse was getting going, and like there was just a small handful of people who were utilizing YouTube. And that's when you would buy a $150 flip cam. And it was like fascinating, like video marketing. I go to an event and they would talk about video marketing. Everyone's like, video marketing. So you film yourself and you put out content teaching, and like, yeah, and you can get these videos at Walmart for only $150. And I was like, wow, I should look into this. Yeah. That was the thing in 2008. Video marketing was just starting up, and I jumped on it.
Yeah. It's crazy to think nowadays you have your phone in your pocket, you take it out, you do a talking head video, you post it. It's all done in like 20 seconds. Like you were a pioneer. Like I know what a flip cam is. I don't even know if a lot of people listening to this are going to know what a flip cam is, but you were like literally a pioneer. It was not that easy. Do you think that, speaking about it not being easy, do you think it was easier for you to put yourself out there on video because nobody was really doing it? Like if you compare that to now, where people have a lot of, and I'm sure you see this with the people, your students, sometimes people have a hesitancy to put themselves out there on video.
Yeah. When I started, I was also like pretty naive. Like I grew up in a pretty loving home where like my mom said I was the best looking guy in high school and I believed her. And my best friend was the other Italian guy whose mom told him the same thing. So we kind of walked the halls thinking that we were like, holy and mighty and God's gift to the world. Until I got dumped by Lisa Murata in grade 11. That's another story.
Hopefully she's not one of the few.
You still remember the names, man. You remember
Lisa
the names.
Murata, she was, yeah, Paula McKinnon. Yeah, I got dumped by a few. But I share that because when I started online, I was maybe I wouldn't know. I don't know if the word's not street smart, but like I was just naive. I thought people were nice until I had people come out of the woodwork and start hating on me. And the hate came from my claim of going from 149 pounds to 190 pounds drug free. And I can tell you guys, it's a fact. I was 149. I had abs when I started. I had abs when I ended. I didn't do a DEXA scan, but people are like, that's impossible. You can't gain. I'm like, I gained drug-free mass, fat-free mass, whatever you want to call it. I gained 41 pounds in 6 months. And I had abs at the start and I had abs at the end. So I'm calling that 41 pounds of muscle. So that claim attracted a lot of haters. People who'd criticize my sales page, me, my nose, my voice, like you name it. Like all of a sudden people didn't like me. I'm like, why don't people like me? I'm like, I grew up in a Christian home. I'm a nice guy. I'm not screwing anybody over. And I'm just trying to help people. And that continued. I attracted a lot of haters on YouTube. I thank them to this day because they toughened up my skin. They were kind of like the bullies for me. I didn't have like high school bullies or street bullies. I didn't have to fight on the streets, but like these guys taught me to stand up for myself. And at first I just kind of like, retracted, but then I realized these guys aren't backing off. And I was like, just don't give them your time. I had to start punching back online. The problem when I started punching back is it just created this cycle and it became a major distraction because I all of a sudden knew how to get attention. I got more views, but then I got sucked into this world of defending myself and seeing what people were saying in the comments instead of focusing on my customers. So it was a double-edged sword, but I definitely think, to answer your question, I think it is scary for people because there's all these people that if you say the wrong thing, you're going to get put on blast. I got put on blast for 12 years.
Yeah.
But through that, I also had a diehard following because I was really like my workouts were legit. My transformations were legit. I had a great message. So that following was built through those times as well.
You can't get we've learned this the hard way. We were the same way one of our core values is give first. Like we give in everything we do. We give our time, our energy, our love. And as the more we started to grow, the more people started to hate online, and they're typically a faceless account with some funny name. But even especially when we hit YouTube with the podcast, we get YouTube commenters are ruthless. But I want to go back to just clarify for the listeners: 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. That's what you said. So do you give away those secrets, or I mean, I imagine a lot of our do you have to pay for that info, or like
asking for a friend?
I'm taking notes.
I mean, so there's the best resource I have is on Amazon. I think it's like $20 or $30 Canadian or US depending. It's called Living Large, and it's a 30-week weight training program, 3 10-week phases, meal plans for training, non-training days, supplement stacks, done for you meal plans, exercise, everything. It's probably the best $20-30 you'll spend. And it's full body workouts, then it progresses into 2-day splits and then into a full blown 5-day split. It's an outstanding program, probably the best program I've ever designed. And I've come out with like literally well over 100 programs over the years, but that one is probably my claim to fame. If I had to burn every program I've ever created to the ground, that would be the program I say just follow this one.
So everyone listening, Living Large by Vince Del Monte on Amazon.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's what I'm following it right now. It's so funny. I go back to my own workouts. Like it's a great freaking program, and I put some great marketing around it. I looked at the science. There's 3 mechanisms of muscle growth: damage, stress, and tension. So damage is like eccentric lifting. slower on the lowering, stress, like high volume, short rest periods, higher reps, and then tension is just lifting heavier. And I built this 30-week program around these three different mechanisms. So it's really well designed. Anybody who appreciates program design and the science, they'll be like, whoever wrote this knows what they're doing. That was my strength in working out, like program design. And that's how I built the YouTube channel off of workouts. Like you don't have to give me a single penny. There's literally hundreds of full-blown workouts, not just like a sample workout, but like, 5-day programs, 4-day programs, 3-day programs. I put everything out there for free, which is pretty amazing that people would continue to go buy a paid program. And I mean, that blew me away.
It seems that you naturally figured out that if you give away the value and give away the secrets, people will pay for your expertise on the back end.
And you know what it is today? It's community. I tell my students now, like, community is no longer an add-on. Oh yeah, and we have a Facebook group. It's community is the crown jewel. It is the cornerstone of your business because that's the one thing nobody can steal.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking to two guys that get that. I spoke at BK Live, the most recent one, and that's exactly what I spoke about while I was on stage. Community, building community. And how nowadays people don't want to follow brands anymore. They want to forge bonds. They want a community bond with like-minded people that are not at the same step of their journey, but some that are further ahead, some that are just starting, so that they can band together and learn from each other and grow. So I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. So you have some programs. When does it shift for you a bit and you start coaching other people to do the same? Like, when's that shift happen?
Great question. So it was crazy because it was way earlier than I normally talk about. It was in 2010. So 2006 to 2010, I launched my online fitness business. I was a millionaire in the first 4 years, my fourth year online. I cleared over $1 million cash collected from primarily ebooks, and I had a program called Maximize Your Muscle. I had like a couple thousand people paying $70 a month. Bedros actually coached me on that like whole continuity offer, and I'm like, it was one of the coolest things I'd ever done. And I did that in 4 years, and a couple buddies found out about it from other masterminds that they were in, that I was also in, and they pulled me aside and they said, would you be open to starting your own mastermind? I'm like, my first thought was, why would I teach you what I'm doing? That makes zero sense. I was like, and they're like, well, what if we all paid you $10,000 each and we could find 10 people and we could do 3 separate spots and we'll figure out the locations and the hotels and everything. I'm like, I still don't really want to, like, I'm not a business coach. I don't even know, like, what do you guys want from me? And they literally said, just teach us what you're doing. So I said, okay, if you guys can, it's funny, they actually bribed me with this, like, this nice, like, Gino shirt with, like, jewels on it. It was all, like, blinged out, and they brought me, and they're like, we even got you something. I'm like, okay, fine. They said the first one, we'll go to Vegas one of the trips. And so they got to me, and they found 10 guys for me. I think I closed 2 of them. And then the other 8 guys, they rounded up and they all wired me 10 grand each. And of those 10 guys, over half of them became millionaires within a year. Like, they just rocket launched. A couple of them are 8-figure earners now. Like big name dudes. And I did that for a year. I don't tell this story often, but what happened, I think I've only told this story a few times publicly, but on the third event, like, I wasn't getting coached by anybody to run this mastermind. The first one, they said, you crushed it. That was mind blowing. The second one, they said it was really good. You really, wowed us. But the guys were catching up to me. On the third one, I didn't know what to do for the next year. And I just said, all right, it's going to be $15,000 next year. And a lot of them had, like, caught up to me. And they all took me aside. We were in Key West at this beautiful resort, and they wanted to talk to me because when I made that pitch, it was completely unplanned. I didn't have any script. It was crickets. And these weren't just like business colleagues. These were like friends now, and none of them even like moved an inch or gave me any feedback. And they pulled me aside and told me why none of them were continuing. And they just said, we feel like you just showed up on the last one and didn't have really a vision for where we're going next year. None of them continued. Now, to this day, I'm friends with all of them. To this day, I'm like buddies with all of them. I'm still friends with all of them. But that hurt so much that I felt like I dropped the ball, and I was totally unaware that I just assumed they were going to give me another 10, 15 grand for another year of coaching, that it stung so badly. I'm never doing business coaching again. I don't want to take $10,000 to $15,000 from people because it's too much responsibility. I felt like they expected too much. And I just went back to fitness coaching. That was 2010. Fast forward to 2017. So I've been doing my muscle stuff now for over a decade, and I was starting to get a little burned out, a little bored. You can only talk about how to squat so much. You can only talk about post-workout shakes so much. And I had my third kid, and I noticed the market was a lot more saturated. It was just getting harder to sell fitness. And
what year was this?
That's when. So I was about 2000, I think 16, 17. That's when Bedros came along back into the picture. He worked with me in 2010. I worked with him in 2010. And this is when he was launching his Empire Mastermind. That's when him and Craig were teamed up. He was charging 50 grand for a year, paid in full. And he was limiting it to 20 spots. And he reached out to me and he told me, like, why don't you have your own fitness coaching mastermind, your own fitness business mastermind? And I told him the story I just told you guys. I said, so you had no one like guide you through this? I'm like, no. He said, do you think you'd do better if you had someone mentor you through like running a mastermind who's already, I think he had his like 100, 200 people. So I'm like, I trusted Bedros, and I'm like, yeah. And I said, yes, I want to do this. But my objection was that I just spent $55,000 on this other scam artist mentor. And I took my wife's money to do it. And she was not like interested in me dropping another 50 grand. So I had to overcome that objection with her, which I did. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. Having the courage to have the conversation with her, but then signing up with Bedros again, and we launched the 7-figure mastermind, which became my flagship business coaching program about 8 years ago.
Yeah. And that's how we all got connected too, Bedros. So we mentioned that earlier. So, what was that third mastermind, right? That you had that painful conversation with the guys. Did you it sounded like you kind of assumed that they were just going to pay you, right? Did you, outside of that, were you overwhelmed? Were you flying by the seat of your pants? Like, was there more that went into it? Because you're a great guy. I can't see you having like the ego and just showing up all ego.
I was just unprepared. Unprepared, man. I was unprepared. It wasn't malicious or anything. I was unprepared. I was unaware. I was maybe unconscious a bit. Like, I just didn't realize, what I was doing. Like, I kind of just took it for granted. I thought they were happy because, they were getting results. But I kind of learned that like they had expectations. They wanted to be taught new stuff. So they felt on the last event, I was kind of teaching stuff I'd already taught. And I realized like just because somebody gives you a testimonial or gets results doesn't mean the sale has fully occurred. What I promised is that I was going to keep teaching them what I was doing and I would be way ahead of them. So like, it was almost a broken promise, right? It's kind of like, Louis Vuitton promising that when you buy the $7,000 handbag, when you could go to Target and get the same, thing that does the same job for $7, that you're never going to see another person without this handbag or with this handbag that didn't pay $7,000. And then all of a sudden, let me finish. This is really funny. But then guess what happens? Louis Vuitton partners with Target, and they do a collaboration, and they put it on sale for $20. And they sell 5,000 of them in 1 hour. What does every single person do who bought that Louis Vuitton $7,000? They burn it on TikTok, and they say I'm never buying from TikTok from Louis Vuitton again because they
sure.
broke their promise. So that's kind of like when I learned about like just because they got a result initially doesn't mean that they're going to be happy if the
For
promise gets
sure.
broken later on.
It sounds like that was a powerful reminder that you always have to work like someone's trying to take it from you, right? Like no matter what level of success you reach, complacency is always the enemy, and it happens to everyone too, especially when you're in winning seasons. You start to maybe lose that fire or stop watching your back,
Mhm.
and
True that.
it
Yeah. And you know what else I noticed for me, again, it goes back to the identity conversation is when I became a millionaire, it was like that's what I wanted. And I started to play not to lose as opposed to play to win. So I hit the brake and it was like, how do I not lose what I've built as opposed to, hey, what else is possible? And I definitely think there's a lot to be said about contentment, stabilization, and that. But I think at the age I was at, like I had capacity to keep growing, but I was like, I was content that I was a millionaire. I never thought about the next level, and I did get comfortable. I actually really got comfortable. And people are like, why aren't you happy? And I really let that get to my head. I'm like, yeah, I should be happy. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy, but it did lead to this just assuming this would keep going, um, and that nothing could stop it, and that I didn't need to evolve, and I could live off my past trophies. And I learned that lesson the hard way too.
so that was one punch in the face, but and then you started your next 7-figure mastermind, which was wildly successful, right?
Yeah, it outgrew my, I always joked around with Bedros, I want to have the biggest fitness business mastermind. And it after actually Nashville, the event you guys were in, we hit our peak, 316 active, not total, there was thousands of total members, but there was 316 active members. And I don't know any other fitness business coaching program who hit that at the time. Um, and that was my claim to fame. And then we had another offer too, but that was over a $20,000 mastermind. So that was like, again, identity. I'm like, I've accomplished this. And then, what happened next kind of brings us closer to where we're at now. But I got comfortable when we got there. I'm like, oh, this is like, we're never going backwards. I didn't realize that can happen to anybody.
At any time.
Can you touch on that a little, like where? Because we always like to talk about because everyone does like to talk on podcasts about the wins, how great everything is, how they're crushing it and crushing in business and life. But as we were talking before the show, like we all go through real shit and real hard times. So we like to hear about the ups and downs and how we overcome that adversity. So if you can share that.
Yeah. Well, that weekend that you guys were at the event, I was a $1.7 million weekend, which was pretty mind blowing. And that was from the ticket sales. We offered 2 different programs at the event. That was from like just an accumulation of revenue from that event. I also had crazy expenses, but essentially we bit off more than we could chew. We had an amazing offer, but it wasn't fully dialed in on the fulfillment side. And we heard about it from some really great members, and that was really, really painful. So we experienced some refunds that were like, I've never processed this type of refund before, and people who were disappointed. And that really hurt because I don't look at my clients just as clients, like they're, friends, people that I take my reputation seriously. So what happened was that was summer of 2002. There was a few other incidences where there was some poaching going on in my coaching program. That's something I always dealt with, but it happened at a level that I was one of our top students. I won't name him, but left the program, became a business coach, and I found out, started to say that I'm a part of Vince's team, and poached not dozens, more than dozens of members out of our program. And a bunch of things like that started to spiral me, and I was not emotionally stable. I was not the guy that was steady. I was like, you would know my mood based on how business went that day, and I was taking it out on my family, unfortunately. Specifically, I was very disconnected. Sure, and my wife was kind of getting to her tail end of me not being present, um, and everything hit a essentially rock bottom in mid-November. Actually, about 2 years ago. It's actually, holy crap! It's November 15. It was literally
Wow.
2 years ago today.
Crazy.
Um, just looked at the date. 2 years ago today, there was a night that my daughter, my oldest, she was not listening to me, and I felt like I was losing control of everything. My coaching program, my team, you know, my relationship with my wife. Now my oldest daughter's not listening to me. And one night, yeah, my anger got the best of me, and it's like I was immediately upstairs now. I've shared this before, and I grabbed her by the ear. I didn't feel like, I was anything like, and she was fine. It wasn't like any like physical abuse or anything, but it was definitely something that I did not manage well. Now my wife had a panic attack right there on the spot, and she said, "You need to get some help." And this was all, I didn't even see, like, I was so checked out. I said, "I don't need help." I said, I don't need help." And in the moment, she says, "You need to get help. If you don't get help in the next like 30 days, like, I'm done." I said something to her that I never meant. And I'm sharing this because, like, I'm warning now men, to realize the severity of, like, your partner saying, "Hey, I'm getting to my tail end. I'm getting to my tail end." Like, to take that literally. And I didn't take it seriously because we're married. We said vows. I'm Italian. She's Romanian. We're like, our people don't divorce. Like, that's not a thing. We're Christians. We don't till death do us part. Like, I thought that ring meant something. I told her I didn't love her and I didn't love the kids. And I said that to hurt her. Now, sadly, she said back to me, "Vince, this is the first time you've been honest in your whole life." And when she said that, it was almost like an electric circuit. I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, it didn't even process. I was so disconnected. And then I realized, like, through therapy, like the next over a year, like, that was her reality of the marriage, that she actually believed that I didn't love her and I didn't love the kids. And when that finally processed, like, that was her actual reality, because I was defending it. But I built this massive financial wall, but you've built 3 massive homes, but you don't have to work, but you don't have a personal trainer, but you have a chef, but our kids are in private school. We go to Florida every winter. I've never asked you to work a day in your life. But I just defended everything. And I didn't take ownership of the reality that she didn't feel loved and she didn't think I loved the kids, which I felt like was the furthest thing away from the truth. But that was her reality. And that's when I realized I am so disconnected. I didn't even know why. And I didn't even know how. And that's when I started therapy 2 years ago. And I went deep. In the last 2 years, the best way I can describe it is I went through this process of awakening and extreme ownership to understanding how the hell did I get here.
Wow, that was a powerful story, Vince. I got chills.
I appreciate you sharing that, Vince, because I know it's not easy. It's probably not easy to relive it, but it's going to resonate with someone in our community. Yeah. When you went through, you said for the past 2 years that, you went deep, and I'm sure that you had to go deeper than just the past decade. Like, you had to go into your childhood and things like that, and you probably had more realizations. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, that's another 6-hour podcast, but I guess a big things, I guess, goes back to identity. I built my identity around being a successful businessman, around fame, around money, and the whole journey forward was like really redefining success. And I realized when that all happened that first of all, I didn't think she actually wanted to, like, separate permanently. So I did everything I possibly could, on my side. But, like, she was done. And I'm like, "What do you mean you're done?" Like, and the last 2 years has been extremely painful because I didn't realize, like, a woman could actually get up and walk. and I'll keep this focused on me here. But I realized that I actually did want to be a great dad. I actually realized I did want to have a deeply connected relationship. And because I was like, I will trade, I will give away, like, I will shut this business down. I actually wanted to have a relationship with her. And I realized I actually like do love you. I didn't know how to show it. I showed it the best way I possibly could up until that time. I was a protector and a provider, and but she wanted my presence, and I didn't. I mean, I wasn't even present with myself. So it's been a long process of forgiveness, and then acceptance, and a lot of dreams dying, and that's probably been the hardest thing because you guys knew, I was in the process of exiting Canada, building a dream home. We built this beautiful dream home in Franklin, Tennessee, enrolling the kids in the States, starting a new life together in the States. And all of those dreams, have died, at least for now. I don't know. And then also like navigating all this while having a sizable business. So, it's no secret that like people are like, what's up with Vince? His energy's off. He's here. Like I was depressed. Making money seemed like the dumbest thing in the world. It was like, it seems so insignificant. Like the only thing I wanted to do was like try and get her back, and reunite my family. It was the only thing I cared about. And I realized it takes two to tango, and I had to like go through this long process of like, how the hell did this happen? How did we get here? And I'm still working through a lot of things. And again, the hardest thing now, being 44-year-old man with 3 kids, is like identity again. I'm like, I took a lot of pride in being a married man, presenting myself on social media as, look, I'm a successful businessman with a family, with 3 kids, a wife that loves me, and all this stuff. And like a lot of stuff I put out there was a lie. And I've had to go through this really painful process of like stripping away all of the lies, and getting to a place where I'm like, you know what? I want to get to a place of facts, because facts set you free. And I just wasn't being honest about a lot of things. And that's been, that would be a lifelong journey to continue to refine back the lies and go back to who I truly was. Because I never really wanted, do I want to grow? Do I want to make more money? Do I like all it? Yeah, but that wasn't really what I wanted. What this actually revealed to me, what matters most is my children, as being in a deeply connected relationship. And what I didn't know was the piece to that is vulnerability. And neither of us knew how to be truly vulnerable in our relationship. There was so much stuff that just prevented us from like connecting and creating safety for each other. And now I know, like, I will, I've been in this process of like just rejigging my business and my philosophy around business, around like what I'm not willing to sacrifice moving forward, because I cannot go through this pain again. It's been horrific.
It brings it full circle to what you mentioned before. We jumped on the show here about redesigning yourself, like stripping away everything to the studs and redesigning yourself, and also like casting a vision for your future. Like, what is important to you? What do you want to be? How do you want to do it? Who do you want around you? Everything.
Yeah,
I talk a lot about,
yeah,
as well, a lot about how you do anything is how you do everything. So you can't be putting 10x effort into your business, but not also putting 10x effort into your marriage or your children, right? Like you need to figure out how to be that person, that high level performer in all facets of your life. And I know it's hard, right? You can't say yes to everything and be that person for all people, but you have to figure out how to somehow put the same level of effort into all aspects of life.
And I mean, the thing with families, you don't get that external validation, right? Like your kids aren't going out making your social media posts about how great you are. Some wives do it, but some wives prefer to keep, have a private account, don't like social media, and don't want to be posting about how great you are, because she's probably doing that because she's got some form of insecurities, and the fact that she's got to always brag publicly about her husband. Like, again, I'm not judging or assuming, like, but a lot of this stuff is like, doesn't matter. It's like what's actually going on inside the home. If there's a truly great relationship, why do you need to broadcast it to the whole world? Some things are meant to just be kept private, and unfortunately, I was more concerned with what people thought about us rather than what was actually happening inside the home. And I mean, it goes to business too. A lot of people are concerned about the revenue rather than their
Yeah.
profits, and it's like, and it all comes back to like validation.
A wise man once told
approval.
us, "Revenue feeds the ego, but profit feeds the family." The
That's
Gary
Pedro's. I love
himself,
that one. Yeah.
and he says things, Pedro-isms that just hit you, and you're like, "Oh my god, that electric shock you were talking about."
Yeah. If there's two
Yeah.
things I know about
Yeah.
you, Vince, man of faith, man of action. So post awakening, or as you're living this awakening, and I know that you'll do the work and you'll believe that you can achieve that vision that you have now for the redesigned Vince.
Yeah. Yeah. And the redesign, it's interesting because since this has happened to me and I've, started sharing the story, which I didn't share for over a year, a lot of guys have been coming out of the woodwork and privately messaging me and just, expressing that it's not normal for an alpha dude or like a successful high achieving dude to start talking about concepts like downsizing, simplifying, smaller team, smaller events. Like I was always about bigger. And hey, listen, I do believe there's people out there who have been called and who need to fulfill on bigger. We need those evangelists. Like there are people who are gifted to go do that. And I've had to really, I 100% don't know, to be honest. I'm now in a place where I'm just seeking out God and the Lord and asking, like, what's your will for my life? If you want to give me a bigger stage, I will be humbled and blessed and I will accept it. But like, if that's my will and not your will, then close that door. Because I'm now just more in a place of like, I want to align my desires with his will for my life. And I think I confused a lot of my desires for his will.
Yeah, very,
And
very
powerful podcast in total, but powerful message too. It's a great reminder that social media is not real, right? You're seeing everybody's highlight reel, everybody's wins. Yep, exactly. You're seeing the pretty faces in the pictures, but you're not seeing what's actually happening in real life. And it takes a really strong man to be open and honest with what they're going through and how they're overcoming it. And you said extreme ownership, and that was a book that changed my life and let me know that I'm responsible for everything that happens to me, no matter what it is. So respect to you for taking extreme ownership and becoming the man that you always knew you could be.
Yeah, it's very hard. It sounds like a simple concept, but like to actually truly surrender and one of the words that one of my mentors gave me, which became one of my North Stars as well, was untriggerable. Untriggerable. And it really resonated with that word, and to be calm and steady. I got to practice it every week that I'm with my kids. But to be that stable, oak tree, that bedrock foundation, has been one of the things that I realized that so much of my identity was wrapped around outside circumstances. I didn't have that peace from within. And that's really what I've been working on, to find my peace in, who God has called me and named me, and being a son of his, and not so much what the world and the culture says about me. And that's been the hardest thing, to like truly surrender to that, and to again get in alignment that I already have an identity, and that's the identity I'm doing my best to walk in now. Although I have flesh and I've got desires and I've got dreams, I really want to like trust now, like he already knows all my desires. He already knows all my dreams. I want to get in alignment with the plan he's got, because I bet it's way better than the one I've got.
For
and
sure.
I gotta trust that.
We did a show with one of the few recently, and the word surrender came up as it relates to marriage. Our ability to surrender, really be vulnerable, right, within our marriages and our relationship, and how important that is. Because I think you're right. Like as men, it's like victory, victory, victory. Like vulnerability comes last. We're always like conquering. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how we're wired, especially high achievers, entrepreneurs. But there is a certain point where that surrender needs to happen, and you need to open up and show what's inside. And when you do that, I think that's when you realize that there's a path to that peace that you're talking about, you know. But if
Yeah.
you're always and I
Yeah.
love to hard charge down the field, like that's my thing. But I find myself too, like if I'm too concerned about victory and I'm not, letting out what's inside to those that I love, that's a big problem. It's a problem.
And we're there
Right.
with you too, Vince. Like there were times for both of us. I know that in the business, scaling the business, we weren't the best fathers and husbands. I know I wasn't.
Yeah.
So we had to learn our lessons too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Because I mean, God wants us to create. He wants us to build. Like that was his original plan in the garden. Like that is honorable for men to work. Like there is nothing that speaks against that. That is biblical. And I think also though we have been called to also serve and love, and that means putting others before ourselves. And I think a lot of men, what we struggle with is building our name, building our empire, not realizing that we've been called to take care of our loved ones, and if they're getting the leftovers, like who's really winning here?
For sure.
Guys, can we do the lightning round before we
Oh yes, yes,
sign
yes,
off?
yes, yes.
All right. Vince, we do 3 quick questions at the end of every podcast. You answer off the top of your head. No right or wrong answers. But first one, what is your favorite quote?
Oh man, I got so many. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard.
I've never heard that one. That's great.
That's
try to give you an
that's a
original.
first on the show. I love it.
Your favorite book recommendation?
I really love
Great
The
one.
Gap in the Gain, because I suffer from comparison syndrome, so always look forward, always measure backwards. That really hit me.
You
That
also
was a good
mentioned
book.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a personal favorite of mine that I mentioned on the show a lot. And also Living Large by Vince Del Monte is a great one to pick up too, right? The last one I have
Yes,
is
sir.
was going to be a sales tip, but I changed it midway through the show. Maybe a tip for fathers, men, entrepreneurs, hard chargers that are out there conquering. What is a bit of advice you have for them?
Are they
Let's
married?
say yes, fathers and husbands.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta check in. Man, I don't know if I should take what angle from. If there's any form of if there's any form of dysfunction in the relationship, make it your number one priority to fix. If you love your wife and you love your family and you truly like, if you just want out, that's another conversation. But if you're like, no, I love my wife, I love my family. If she's expressing anything, that smallest thing is going to become the biggest thing. And I would stop everything that you're doing and not take her for granted. Do not take your children for granted. Do not take your home for granted. Do not take your business for granted. Do not take your future for granted. Do not take how tough and strong you are for granted. God will take it all away from you in a moment if you're not living in an honoring way. Not as a punishment, maybe as a gift, to be honest, to wake you up. If there's any troubles in your home right now, go fix them. Because if you lose your support system, it has been so hard to do what I did, what I thought was just easy when I had support at home. I mean, even now, I was telling you guys, like, you guys want to see where I'm at right now. I'm at I'm on a play date in a kid's bedroom upstairs, and like there's bunk beds around me. I had to like try and make this, like, I would be embarrassed almost to show you where I'm taking this call to make this happen, because I didn't know it was a PA day today. I didn't check the kid's calendar. I just don't have that support. I used to be able to just do everything on my own. And my wife took care of everything. She, and now I have to play Mr. Mom, and it's been amazing because it's forced me to grow up. I now know I can raise three kids on my own half the time at least. And But life is very different now. It is much harder, and it's really hard not seeing my kids. Like, I didn't want this. I didn't sign up for this. I wanted a family. I believe God will reconcile. But like, if you love your wife, if you love your children, and there's any form of dysfunction, go get professional help. Make this a priority. Even if you put like 20% into this than you put into your business, you'll probably be able to make it right, because I know how much work people put in their businesses. Get it done. Do what you got to do. Lead. Losing your families, it's not worth it, unless, you know, that's not where your head's at. But if you love your family, like, go do what you got to do until there's like peace or some form of progress.
Powerful.
This is not easy to walk through. I don't wish this upon
Powerful wisdom,
anybody.
powerful advice for not only, you know, fathers, but entrepreneurs as well. Vince, today was amazing. I truly, truly thank you for being vulnerable, sharing your story. Like I said earlier, I know it's going to resonate with a lot of the few. We're out there, we're hard charging, we're conquering, but we're all living through a variation of the same thing. So, like I said before, I know you, I know you're a man of faith, man of action. And I am, even though there's been some painful parts in your past few years, I'm really eager to see what's next for you. I really am. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drew, you got anything? Any finals?
No, Vince, just let people know where to find you.
Yeah. You mind if I just say a word for you guys,
Sure.
for everybody listening? Yeah, dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for these men, Drew and Joy, and for Fuel Hunt and all the listeners here. I just pray that you would continue to protect their minds and to give them clarity on what's most important in life, and that you would show yourself real and present in each and every person's lives. And I pray that there's insights here to inspire people to keep the main thing the main thing. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Vince.
The Lord told me to be more vocal about my faith and just
No, not at all. Man of faith, man of action, man. We knew who was coming on the show today, so don't mind at all.
All right. Yeah, it's I got a new account. I am Vince Del Monte.
Okay, cool.
That's
You want to touch on
yeah.
You want to touch on scholarship as well?
YouTube's Vince Del Monte. Oh yeah. So we're running it. So it's my 45th birthday this month. So I'm doing $45,000 of cash. In exchange for basically people tell me why they deserve to come into our coaching program, and we select about a dozen winners and spread the cash out, so it makes it easier to get started with us. So it's a scholarship giveaway to celebrate my 45th birthday, and if you go to my Instagram account, they'll see some different posts, or they can go directly to sevenfiguremastermind.ca/scholarship, and they can just follow the instructions. And if we like what you say and it inspires us, then you'll receive a message from us, and we'll set up a call and we'll offer you some money towards getting started.
Very
if
cool.
it's a good fit.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to leave the few with a reminder: always choose hard work over handouts. Always choose effort over entitlement. Remember, no one owns you, no one owes you. You're one of the few. Now let's hunt.